The richest mafia bosses ever to exist. With the country's ongoing crackdown on narcotics and other criminal activity, have you ever pondered how much it costs to be a criminal? For these people, it appears to be worth trading their lives, and if you think you're living the life of a mobster, ducking calls and hiding from debt collectors because of outstanding credit card bills, you're nothing compared to how these big-level mafia bosses lived. These folks became extremely rich and infamous as a result of drugs and organized crime. They were also responsible for their ascension to the top of the worldwide police's most wanted list. Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video on the channel. Today we are going to talk about the richest mafia bosses to ever exist. Before we get started with the video, don't forget to smash the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. Number 15. James Burke. Jimmy the Gent was his nickname since he was always dressed nicely. In 1968, he was charged with a $5.8 million Lufthansa theft. James was caught for a parole violation in 1982, but he was never seen outside of prison again. Number 14. Richard Kuklinski. Kuklinski killed his first victim when he was 13 years old after beating his bullies to death. After that, he spent years working as an executioner for the Gambino crime family. He shot, stabbed, and bludgeoned people to death as he grew older. Richard has the option of dumping the bodies he kills in the Hudson River or leaving them where they died. He died on March 5, 2006. However, his death was deemed suspicious because he was scheduled to testify against a mobster on trial for murder. Number 13. Giovanni Brusca. The People's Slayer was just released from prison after serving around 25 years. Nonetheless, he has never forgiven betrayal and is willing to kill children to punish perceived evil. He became a state witness to decrease his sentence after being captured in 1996, and he assisted authorities in hunting down mafia mobsters responsible for mafia attacks in the 1980s and 1990s. Number 12. Bernardo Provenzano. Because Bernardo killed people without mercy, people called him the Tractor. He was a major Italian mafia boss who died in a hospital while serving his prison sentence. Provenzano was said to have suffered from bladder cancer and serious cognitive impairment before his death. Number 11. Roy DeMeo. DeMeo was a well-known hitman for the Gambino family, and he was involved in over 200 Gemini-style murders. Also, he was in charge of a group called the DeMeo Crew, which was known for killing a lot of people and getting rid of their bodies in horrible ways. Number 10. Frank Lucas, $52 million. When Frank Lucas returned from Vietnam, he saw the potential of the heroin trade. With his ties there, he was able to frequently transport in cargoes of heroin from Southeast Asia. He was already making some money, but he knew he could make more if he could just get over the Sicilian Mafia, which ruled the Harlem trade at the time. He eventually acquired control of the whole heroin business in New York and New Jersey by employing only loyal members of his family and keeping a low profile. During his best days, he was selling up to $1 million worth of heroin per day. Number 9. Joseph Kennedy, $300 million. Much has been written regarding the Kennedys' ties to the Chicago Mafia. It was believed that President John F. Kennedy's father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., set up a meeting with Chicago mobster Sam Giancana to solicit his support for Jack Kennedy's presidential run. Giancana also aided in the funding of vote buying and political endorsements for the 1960 West Virginia Democratic primaries. Kennedy was a legitimate business owner until he needed to take extraordinary measures to keep his company viable. He did business with the mobs of New York and Chicago and made a fortune as a bootlegger. According to Fortune magazine, Kennedy was worth more than $300 million at the height of his career. Number 8. Griselda Blanco, $500 million. Griselda Blanco, dubbed the Cocaine Godmother and the Black Widow, worked for the Colombian Medellin cartel, earning up to $80 million per month through intimidation and violence. She was imprisoned for 10 years on drug charges before being freed in 2012. That same year, though, she was murdered by a hired assassin. Number 7. Meyer Lansky, $600 million. Lansky was a member of the Jewish mob with ties to the Italian Mafia, earning him the moniker Mob's Accountant. He was instrumental in the growth of the National Crime Syndicate in the United States. He amassed his money by establishing a global gambling empire that included casinos in London, the Bahamas, Las Vegas, New York, Miami, Iowa, and Cuba. He was responsible for much of the criminal underworld's unification and was both a member and a participant in organized crime. Lansky went to Israel after being charged with tax evasion but finally returned to the United States to face his criminal accusations. He was acquitted in 1974 and died of lung cancer in 1983 at the age of 80. His concealed millions were never discovered by the FBI. Number 6. Anthony Salerno, $1 billion. After the departure of other Italian competitors, Fat Tony, Salerno made a fortune by leading the drug trade in East Harlem in the 1960s. In the 1980s, he rose to the top of the Genovese crime family, and Fortune magazine dubbed him America's top gangster in 1986. This is partly due to the fact that he was a billionaire with clout among the world's most influential people. He died in 1992 at the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Missouri, USA, after a stroke. Number 5. Al Capone, $1.3 billion. In the early 1900s, Capone grew up on the streets of Brooklyn. He was born into a good and educated family, but when he was 14 years old, he became one of the most known street thugs. In 1909, he relocated to Chicago, where he assisted Johnny Torrio in running a chain of brothels, followed by gambling casinos and bootlegging. He inherited Torrio's empire in 1925 and made profitable investments in real estate and illegal commodities. He wasn't prosecuted for tax evasion until 1936. He was imprisoned until 1941. He died of a heart attack in 1957, leaving $1 billion in his estate. Number 4. Carlos Leder, $2.7 billion. Leder assisted in the formation of the Medellin drug cartel and worked with George Jacob Jung, commonly known as El Americano and Boston George, to distribute cocaine in the United States. He became so wealthy that he purchased his own private island in the Bahamas and even promised to pay off Colombia's national debts. He was extradited and sentenced to life in prison, which was later reduced after volunteering to testify against Panamanian President Manuel Noriega in 1992. Number 3. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Lora, $5 billion. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency has dubbed Joaquin El Chapo Guzman the godfather of the drug world, and Forbes magazine has named him the biggest drug lord of all time. Guzman is one of the world's richest and most powerful people. He is the chief of the Sinaloa cartel, which is responsible for transporting tons of cocaine from Colombia to Mexico and ultimately through the United States. When El Chapo was apprehended in 2014, he had brought 500 kilograms of cocaine into the United States on his own. He escaped from prison multiple times before being apprehended in January 2016. Number 2. Amado Carrillo Fuentes, $25 billion. Fuentes had 22 private jets, principally Boeing 727s, that he used to transport cocaine from Mexico to Colombia, earning him the moniker King of the Skies. He assassinated his ex-boss, Rafael Aguilar Gallardo, and took over the Juarez cartel's operations. In July 1997, he died on the operating table while undergoing plastic surgery to further elude authorities. He either suffered an allergic response to the drug or his respirator stopped working. Surprisingly, the two surgeons who conducted the operation on Fuentes were discovered dead 3 months later, with apparent evidence of torture on their bodies. Number 1. Pablo Escobar, $30 billion. He was known as the Colombian drug trade's Dark King, the king of cocaine, the guy behind the legendary Colombian Medellin cartel, accumulating a claimed $30 billion fortune by importing and distributing cocaine in the United States. Aside from being one of the richest drug lords in the world, he was also regarded as the most violent, with his organization killing hundreds of journalists, police officers, and judges for refusing to collaborate. He escaped from prison in 1993 and was assassinated by the Colombian National Police in a tiny village near Medellin the following year. That's a wrap on the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, let me know by giving it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.